What's up, everybody? Tanner Larsson here, and welcome back to the Optimized Ecommerce Podcast. Super excited to be here and to have you here. I gotta say, though, guys, we got a topic today that I have been avoiding for, I don't know, a year or more. So today's guest is a repeat guest. It is Eric Kwoka. Eric is a member of our BGS optimization team. He's a rock star. He's actually probably the smartest person on our team, like brainiac kind of guy. And the topic he has been wanting to do an article on, wanting to do a podcast on. I have been literally like, it's in our Trello board of like, hey, here's what we're going to do. And I've avoided it. I keep telling him, no. And I just pretend it doesn't exist. And it's not because it's not a good topic. It's because I don't know what the heck it is. And I don't want to look dumb. So today I'm going to look dumb while Eric shares what is called information foraging theory with you and with us. And I'm going to learn at the same time as you, because I'm sure at a very broad level, I probably might know a little bit about it just because it probably has some common stuff in it. But he's so smart, and what he talks about, I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I'm going to be a student in this episode just as much as you guys are while we go through information foraging theory, which is tied into digital psychology. And I do understand a little bit about psychology. So I'm interested, I'm nervous at the same time, but it should be a good time. So Eric.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be that bad for you. The goal here is to get you thinking towards the end, like, oh, I never thought about it that way, but that's how it is.
Yeah. So I got to say, guys, Eric had two topics for today that he was like, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, it would be a miracle, a Christmas miracle or whatever, if information foraging theory got to be the topic. So he got his Christmas miracle. So we're 12-15, so almost Christmas. We got an early miracle, and now we're going to do the topic that he's wanted for so long. So Eric, to kick this off, let's start with digital psychology. What is it? And what is it?
The basics of digital psychology are just the study of how humans interact with our technology, both in the ways that our technology influences us and the ways that we, psychologically start to influence the content of, what we find in technology. Okay. Like how systems start to develop based very much on those psychological responses, not purely as a one-way feedback thing. It's not just Facebook programming us. Facebook's also getting programmed by us to get this constant feedback to be this ideal, whatever it is that Facebook decides to be optimized for. But whether that's good for the world, who knows? But there is that feedback that goes back and forth. So you're using your social media, and over time, those things influence your brain in different ways. The way that you see different things on the screen, and that responds in different ways because you interpret things differently based on these kinds of how things are set up on the screen. And understanding that can be pretty useful, actually, when you're building digital products.
Gotcha. Okay. So you mentioned one little benefit, which is you're building digital products and properties and things like that. But can we get into some more of the specifics of what some of the benefits of using digital psychology are?
Yeah. So of course, as everything in this podcast, it always translates back to revenue at the end. But a big part of if you understand your users better on a more psychological level, you can better tune that aspect and have that understanding. When we do marketing stuff, you do personas, and some of that's about understanding, oh, what does this person want out of this interaction? What is it that they're hoping to gain from a value perspective? So that would be an aspect of where this psychology kind of comes over, in how you apply, oh, we're going to use these colors because colors are the lowest of the low example, but yeah. It's the easiest for people to understand. Oh, if we show green, people will think that that's good to go and stuff like that.
And is that so the whole concept of red is a negative color, and because of stop signs and all of that, would that fall under what you're talking about?
Absolutely. We get these small signals, and you kind of understand both your users and how these different triggers can happen, because not everybody sees red and gets stopped by it. There's plenty of brands that have red as their main color, and they use that for their, add to cart buttons and stuff, and that works. So it's not just this, oh, you shouldn't do red, because there's context to a lot of those different things. Just throwing red when there is no red anywhere else is definitely going to probably slow people down. But when they're already used to seeing the red, it doesn't necessarily matter in that same way. But essentially, since, as we always like to say, you're not your user, and you may think of when you have full understanding of your site and your products, you can easily get around your store with no trouble. But if you take a step back and think about it from the psychological level of how users are seeing the aspects of your site and what it influences them to do, you may start to realize like, oh, people can't find certain things if they don't already know where they are.
Okay, makes sense. All right, so we kind of touched on the basic of digital psychology. I still feel comfortable in this area. Now we're moving into information foraging theory and how it ties in to digital psychology. So before we do that, why don't you give an overview of actually like maybe a definition of information foraging theory? So at least I understand where we're going.
Yeah, so like with any just like normal psychology, there's lots of different theories that build up how we try to understand how humans interact with their technology. So information foraging theory is just one of these many, and it's built off of what was called optimal foraging theory, which relates to how animals interact with their environments to find food and how they make the decisions about what food to pursue and which to not. So how that translates into the digital world with information foraging theory is like when you land at a website and you're trying to, say, find a gift for somebody, you look around and you see what is the thing that most likely is going to lead me towards what I'm trying to get. So they call that information scent. It's kind of like, like an animal would be sniffing around trying to find where the food that they're chasing ran off to. Human kind of looks and they see, oh, these are, we see common things like, oh, this is a menu. We've been taught what a menu looks like. So we know, oh, okay, if I need to find stuff, I'll maybe click there. Or, like I'll click a category that seems closest to what I think I'm looking for. And a lot of these things can start to go astray as stores get designed with that idea, as I mentioned before, where you're designing it knowing the store fully. So you understand, oh, this button goes there, but a user that doesn't have that familiarity might be more confused, and they might not click on things that they don't know where it's going to lead, even if it is actually the thing that they're looking for.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like I know I and most of the people on the team have all seen user testing videos where the person's talking about something that they can't find as it's like right there in front of them, just because the way that the visual styling of it lined up, they just didn't notice it. Even though it was there and they were looking for it, they couldn't see it just because they just kind of were like, oh, there's nothing that's giving me the clues.
Yeah, and that's actually makes a good point, because that's way more common than most people would think it is when you do a user test. It's like you're sitting there watching them do that, like watching the recording of the user test. You're like, it's right there. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, click the button, or but they're not getting it. And you're right. So that's it's a bigger part of it.
Yeah, so this can become really big problems when users might see this information sent. They might gather this in a direction that's actually like incorrect. And when they end up where that leads and not finding the thing that they are looking for, it could, they might just leave thinking it's not there. Like imagine if you're going to like Walmart's website and you're looking to buy a baby seat for your car, and you think like, oh, that's an automotive product. So you go to the automotive stuff and it's not there. You just think, oh, Walmart doesn't have these. I mean, Walmart probably does because they're Walmart, but you kind of just go, oh, they don't have these. Like, no, they had them over in the section for, childcare. But there's no reference once you're in automotive that might be where that thing is. So you quickly just go, oh, it's not here. And in nowadays there's so many websites doing everything. Like every day there's more competition. They know they can go somewhere else to find that. Like if I go to any store looking for a baby seat and I don't find it, I know there's another store that will have it. So why would I keep trying to struggle with this one that I'm now thinking doesn't have it when I can run off somewhere else?
Makes sense. Yeah, it's true. And it's especially in today's environment, we don't find what we want within the first couple seconds. We're done. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you, like, I know Home Depot has the part that I need, but I'll walk up and down like 3 aisles. And if I haven't found it, I'm like, okay, I'm done. And I just get pissed and I'll walk out, even though I have to come back later or go somewhere else to find the part because it's not logically where I believe it should be.
Yeah, and reasonably in that exact experience, chances are you're using things like their signage and their general grouping of stuff in the store and your understanding of what the product is to find where in the store you should go. What aisle is this? But it seems like you have the experience of that those signs are not aligning with your expectations.
Yep.
To where either it's that your product maybe straddles two categories, so you're not even sure which one to go with in the first place. And then with a physical store, they're not going to put the product in both spots.
Correct.
Or at least on a digital store, you can put baby seats in automotive and in childcare. Like it's the same collection, you just get there different ways.
Correct.
So kind of understanding how users might interpret some of your product categories and see where there might be overlap. A common one would be in like women's fashion. It's like you have categories that are immediately visible on the homepage. It's like, plus size and dresses. It's like, well, what if I want a plus size dress? Which of these is the more appropriate? Is dresses gonna have also the plus size dresses? Is plus size also gonna have all the dresses? Nowadays, that would be a common one that people would fix and easily handle. But when it gets more and more, say not as clear what the solution would be and how people might move, people will just go, oh, that category is over there. And you as a store owner, oh, plus sizes has the plus size dresses and dresses doesn't, but the user coming doesn't.
Yeah.
They kind of see this overlap and they don't know if these are exclusive categories or not. And the best way to handle that is often just to put both, put it in both. And then you don't have to run into trying to guess which ones users will go to more often when they're trying to solve that problem.
So from a higher level look at it, information foraging theory is more of, I mean, if we go back to the just breaking it down, foraging, looking for stuff, right? Trying to find stuff. So we're basically trying to learn and figure out how people are using our site, interacting with what we have, and figuring out what they're doing, not necessarily what we've done to make it better.
Yes, like we're really trying to understand what is their need. Their need is to, find their food, find their product, or the solution to whatever their problem is, whether that could be just information at the end, and trying to make sure that we're giving clear signals that help them make that decision easily.
Got it. Okay. So what are some other use cases or areas where information foraging theory can be very helpful, or, like ecom specific example kind of things?
One of the probably more impactful ones can be in regards to that, like first landing on whatever page your ad sends them to. Ensure that there's content that clearly connects whatever the ad was to whatever they land at, like immediately visible, so that the user that lands there immediately can understand, like, I am where I expected to be. If you're using a specific headline in the ad, something similar to that headline should be on the page that they land at, or a similar image and stuff like that. If it's totally disconnected, they then have to orient themselves differently than how they would if there's a clear continuity. So that's one of the great ways, because when users first land, they need to figure out, what is this store? What is it about? What kind of stuff do they have? And they'll use both that information that they got from the ad and that continuity through, as well as other things that they see. Like we talked about on home pages, if you have lots of product categories, you need to show at least a decent selection of what those categories are and represent a good chunk of them, not just everything into your best-selling stuff, because your best-selling stuff will always be the best-selling when nobody realizes that there's anything else. Like you're kind of putting maybe it will stay the best-selling forever, but you can't know if nobody's ever realizing
your other products.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. So you want to try to represent, same with like the menu and top level categories. Like you want to represent a good spread so that users can see that there's other stuff there. And even if they're not looking for it right then, they'll kind of associate that with your brand over time. As well as the common ones like breadcrumbs on product pages, so that users can if they need to, they can quickly see and move kind of back or up through the hierarchy. If they want to find other products similar, they can kind of use breadcrumbs to orient themselves in that way, as well as properly labeling buttons and making sure they're close to the things that they are meant to be contextually linked with. Like that's something that just comes up a lot, where you just have buttons that just say view, and you're like,
View what?
well, what's it viewing? And like, oh, it's the thing above it. That's what you're viewing. Like, yeah, but it's closer to the thing below it. So how do I know which one this is trying to view when I go to click it? And users just often won't click it, or they'll only click based off of, their assumptions, as opposed to really knowing what the connection is. It's like we always try to say, it's good for accessibility as well. I mentioned that in a past podcast, like clearly label. If it says view, just say view shirts. Like it's just another word. It's not going to mess up like your whole design flow, but it makes that just clear. It's exactly what this button is going to do.
And to circle back real quick, when you mentioned the homepage, because this is, yes, you want to show a breadth of products and show, kind of what you do and what you offer, but that can be also taken too far, right?
Yes, like absolutely. You don't want to be shoving in everything, especially if you have one product as a type, it doesn't, and it's not very popular, it doesn't need to be given super front attention. You just need to give something that kind of indicates the general breadth of stuff that you have. Like you don't go to Sephora and only see lipsticks on the homepage. You kind of see, you don't see every type of individual beauty product that they have, but you see enough to understand, oh, they have beauty products as a whole. They're not just lipstick and eyeshadows or something like that.
Yep. Totally makes sense. Okay. What else? Where else can that be very strong? Like I'm assuming the product page would be a very heavily impacted page by applying this to it.
Yes, absolutely. As you mentioned, like the one that comes up so often is stuff like size charts. Users, it seems like, if you have size charts, you can still add 2 more and every single one will be better than the last. Because everybody seems to interpret where a size chart should be a bit differently. You just put them everywhere so that, because they're important to lots of users, especially if it's something that isn't super common, or where you can say like, oh, like I always buy a medium shirt. If you always buy a medium shirt, you don't care about the size chart. But for products that you might buy more irregularly or as gifts and things like that, size charts are huge, and they could be in multiple places because people will try to look for it in different places.
Makes sense. Cool. All right. So far, guys, I have to admit, it was a lot scarier sounding than what he actually explained. So I just knew it from a different way. So that is a perfect example of avoiding something that, for no reason, right? And I've actually done that multiple times in my career. So this isn't something new for me. But this is okay. So any other elements of information foraging theory or its use cases that you want to kind of cover and elucidate to?
Sure. But yeah, like I mentioned, this is just a different way of kind of looking at some of these things that you may already know, but not necessarily fully understand how to connect or have that basis. Because I believe that a lot of times it's good for the marketing and stuff. Like what we do is just to tell people what they should do on their store. But a lot of times why is what really impacts things. And the tactics can change while the fundamental stuff stays the same. Like,
Correct.
If your store needs to, know, like, and trust, as long as your customers do that, then you're going to win. Like the exact tactics that you use to get to know, like, and trust
correct,
aren't necessarily that important. There's ones that work better in different contexts, but it's like we say you need to have reviews, but then big brands, Apple, Louis Vuitton, you're not going to see reviews on their site because that's just totally irrelevant to what they are in the user's minds. Like just reviews don't matter. So like when you understand how these different aspects of the digital psychology and stuff come into play, you can kind of tune the various tactics that you see from us or others into fitting with your overall goals and understanding of your users.
Yep. So I think one of the big takeaways I would say from this, obviously aside from just like the detail, but from a broader view, big takeaway is using information foraging theory as a way to remind yourself that you are not your customer, and remind yourself that what you see on the site and the function of your site, or the way people interact with your ads or whatever, is not the way that your user base sees it. And remembering that, and remembering to, try to look at it from their perspective, get their input, and see how they do it, is going to give you the wins using this methodology.
Absolutely. Like if you can just always remember to take that step back and look at it as fresh eyes, it's always eye-opening to do the user test and just see new people seeing your store, how often they'll be like, oh, I can't do this thing. And you're like, oh my God, it's right in front of you. But then you have to sit back and be like, okay, how can we make it more clear that it's right there?
And, it is, sometimes it can be redundant, guys. An example, one of our amplified partner stores, they sell pet products, and a specific pet product that has sizing. There is a sizing wizard above the fold. There is a sizing chart above the fold. There is a sizing chart in the images. There is a sizing guide, or a wizard, again, a duplicate of it down the page. There's a sizing image down the page. I think there's 7 or 8 different sizing, exactly the same information presented different ways on that page. Now that's ridiculous. It's already there once. Well, we keep testing it. Every time we've added another one in a smart way, not just for the sake of adding it. Conversions have gone up, add to carts have gone up, and sales have gone up because of it, right? So we look at it, we're like, oh my God, there's a wizard and there's a size chart and there's an image. Like, what else do we need to do? It doesn't matter what we think. That is, I always come back to that example in my head when I think of something being redundant or just ridiculous. Hey, this store does millions of dollars a month, and that specific product page, every time we seem to add another size chart in a new way, in a new area where scrolls stop, boom, conversions get another lift. And we think this is not going to work. There's already enough on here. This isn't going to help. And that's not the case in everything, but it's one example that kind of drives it home, that where we think it's redundant, or we think it's good enough or totally amazing and over the top, the user base says differently, and they speak with their wallets. So we very easily know if we're doing a good job.
Yeah, like it's if something's really important about your product, like it's a main selling point and it's why people buy it, you should have that there many times. Like say like you're buying organic like food products, like organic supplement or something. Most of the stores that would have those, like when you're on that page, like you cannot escape knowing that it's organic.
Yeah,
they're gonna have that in pictures multiple times. They're gonna have that in headings, in the text, just like the title. It's gonna be everywhere.
Icon.
Make sure you can't get away knowing that, like without knowing that it's organic, because for those specific products, like that's a major point about what differentiates them.
Yep. And actually, we were looking at a site yesterday. I can say it. It was GFuel, which is one we've critiqued many different times. I wish they'd actually watch one of our critiques and implement what we show them, because they could be making millions of dollars more than they're currently making without changing any of their traffic. But anyway, it's a good brand. It's an e-gamer sport drink brand. But on their site, they basically have powdered drinks mostly that mix into a shaker that are energy for gamers, right? So it's like a protein shaker, but an energy drink for someone who sits in their chair and plays video games. And they got all these different flavors and everything. But you look at their product page. One of the big selling features of this product is that it's 0 sugar. But you can't find that unless you really scroll through the page. And then if you read the reviews or you read feedback or like search, people are like, is it sugar free? Or in the reviews, they're like, hey, I got this stuff. It tastes great. And it's sugar free. I had no idea. That is a red glaring, like slap in the face. Hey guys, you're not calling out and showcasing one of your key features. And just like organic, sugar free, clean energy, whatever the different benefits of your drink are in that case. But the sugar free is one there. If they're commenting on it in a review that like, I didn't know it was this, and that's awesome. How many people didn't buy because they thought it was loaded full of sugar like every other sport drink?
Yeah, like if we're using the frame of information foraging theory, somebody could be coming in, they're wanting a sugar-free sports drink. They come here, they are at a sugar-free sports drink, but the information that they're getting back, that information sent from the site is, oh, this is not actually what you're looking for.
No.
because they're looking for that thing and they're just not finding it where they think it should be.
Correct. And guys, as you're listening to this, many of you are probably like, well, of course you're going to highlight that. That's a major thing. You're banner blind to the things in your own business that are just as obvious. I promise you, all of us are. And that's things that we don't think are important actually may become very big buying decisions or thought processes. One for sheets. When sheets, before the whole thread count craze of sheets were basically, it was cotton or silk or whatever. And people would go, okay, well, silk sheets are soft, whatever. But then they started talking about thread count. And it wasn't necessarily because the consumer cared. But they started using it as like a marketing thing. But now people will not buy nice sheets if they don't know the thread count, even if it makes no difference to what, like, the quality of the sheet. Now, in most cases, thread count does make a difference, but at a certain level, you can't really tell the difference. But they're looking for that thread count because they've been conditioned to expect it. And when you don't have it, it basically looks like you're trying to hide something and they're just not going to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I kind of mentioned before that I just want to wrap up with the information foraging theory is also, you might be sending signals that actually take users away from where they are wanting to go by having they kind of call it like too pungent of information sent in one direction. It's like the example that I read in an article by NNG. They had that they were studying like teens health websites, and they had, teens looking at like kids health, and they're like, oh, find on this site where what the weight is that you can be before you're overweight. Like, where's that tipping point? So the kids are looking through the site, and there's like a clear article that's like, oh, what's the appropriate weight for my height? So they go to that article and it doesn't have that information in it. But that's like the perfect title. Like everything about the context of it was like, this is where I would find this information.
And it's not there.
So they went there and it's not there. And they were just like, it must not be anywhere, because if it's not in this place that was like so obvious, then they must not have it. And of course they do have it. It's just under something called body mass index, which is not going to be the first thing anybody clicks when trying to find that information.
Totally.
So there could be places where you might be almost sending users in the wrong direction. Like if you have say a shipping and returns tab, and then it doesn't actually have all the information related to shipping and returns. Like it just has maybe the most common ones, but not everything. Like the user is just going to be like, oh, they don't like put estimated shipping prices in there. That's a common one that people miss. Even if I know with Shopify, it can be
talking
hard
about
to,
returns.
Yeah, like the Shopify can be hard to figure out what the estimated shipping is, but just put like something that kind of gives an estimate there, because users will go to that spot for that information. They'll not always go all the way to the checkout, and they don't want to go all the way to the checkout to do that. So just kind of put all the information related to shipping in the shipping tab, so they don't have to bounce all over the place.
Yeah, and then the final piece on that, I would say, would be not final piece, but one more piece would be, okay, so you did present the information in the tab, but did you present it in the way that the customer actually can use it? So a big thing with drop shipping sites is metric system versus, normal standard. What is it? Is it called standard? What is it? What do we call our system? Imperial, right? There we go. Right. And then so it's like, okay, I want to buy this thing, but it's 10 millimeters. Okay. But most of your buyers measure in inches. And for the most people they cannot do the difference between millimeters and inches. And they're like, okay, I don't even know. Right. So that you're presenting the information, but you're presenting it in such a way that you're making it complicated for your user. Remember, we always talk on the podcast about treating your user as if they were Homer Simpson, not because you're trying to insult them, but because if Homer Simpson can use your site and understand and he can find the ideal body mass index to show that he is overweight, then Homer's going to be happy and he's going to figure it out. If Homer can do it, all your customers can do it. But a lot of times you put the stuff on there and it's completely useless, even though you know it, because again, your product, but you're putting it in a way that's not beneficial to the customer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So awesome. Okay. Well, guys, I got to say, information foraging theory, not as scary as I thought. Don't know why I avoided it for as long as I did. Very valuable. And it's something that we use in, I guess, well, maybe not. I use it somewhat intuitively, not knowing the terminology, but it's something that we do in the RO process quite heavily. I just never knew it was called that. But yes, definitely take a fresh look at your site. And if you can't be objective about it, get some friends, get some other people and just say, hey, just go do this and tell me what you think, and tell me where are you confused or whatever. Go ahead and get some feedback from them, because they'll have a different perspective of it than you.
Yeah. And just like with user testing, don't really listen to their opinions about stuff, but pay attention to what they do.
Correct.
Like, because what they say about what they like and dislike, it's just like when we design some of the things that we do on stores, like we don't like it, but it works.
Right.
So really pay attention to what they're doing. Like, well, I'm looking for this thing. It's like, I'm going to click here. And you're like, oh, that's not the right place at all. Why did you think that was the place to go?
But if enough
Focusing
people
on
do
those
it,
things.
then we got to change it. We got to make it work. If it's an outlier and one person does it, okay, that happens. We don't react to outliers. But if it's a common thread, it's not them that's wrong, it's you. So fix it. All right. Well, guys, that's it for today. I just wanted to keep this one a little bit shorter, but if you like the information foraging theory, if you've used it, if you have questions about it, post a comment, leave a review, let us know. Make sure you're subscribed. To get the show notes and all that good jazz, go to buildgrowscale.com/podcast. And if you have not booked your ticket for BGS Live yet, we've extended the discounted early bird pricing. You can still save $700. The event is January 10th, 11th, and 12th in Dallas, Texas. So it's easy for everybody to get to. And we're doing it. It's going to be big. It's going to be awesome. And you definitely need to be there, because it is where all the issues and struggle that people have had with ecom over the last year. It's been a rough year for ecom. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. It's been a rough year. And it's the only way to get through that and make 2022 a better year is going to be by leveraging the collective genius of more than one store owner. Like, we have all the big 7, 8, 9-figure store owners coming to the event. We have all the big media buyers. Everybody's coming there because everybody's been struggling and nobody wants to struggle in 2022. So we're all coming together to use the collective genius of the room to help everybody make 2022 an amazing year. So if you haven't got your ticket yet, now's the time. buildgrowscalelive.com. Head over there, grab your ticket now, and we'll see you there. Have a nice day, everybody. See ya.